Hi, it's Joni Michaels, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Joe Clark, host of Consider This Program. Joe's a certified financial planner and former professor at Purdue University. He's the managing partner for the Financial Enhancement Group. Joe's passion is teaching people about their money so they don't make inefficient financial decisions that lead to frustration and devastation. The Financial Enhancement Group serves more than 900 families in 31 states and manages more than $400 million. The Financial Enhancement Group takes care of people who don't want to worry about their money so they don't make inefficient financial decisions. Joe addresses your questions about money in 5 critical elements of finance: retirement planning, or what we like to call your life after work, tax planning, investment planning, life happens, the good, the bad, and the ugly of life, and legacy planning. The Financial Enhancement Group can be reached at 800-928-4001 or visit yourlifeafterwork.com. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Securities offered through World Equity Group, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC.
Well, good morning and welcome to Consider This. I'm your host, Joe Clark.
I'm Angie Kinzer.
Happy to have you along, Angie, and you all listening. Happy Memorial Day weekend. What a great thing. I don't see it talked about a lot, Angie, but I will let you go into this a little bit. But Indiana's number one character trait is, you and I discuss this word all the time.
Our character trait?
Our number one character trait as Hoosiers. Loyalty.
Okay.
Per capita, the last time we saw the numbers, when the United States engages in battle, we have the largest number of people who sign up on their own accord per capita in the country. We are very, very, very loyal people. It's just who we are. But you have some stuff about Memorial Day you want to share?
Well, yeah. I mean, apparently the Indianapolis 500, which is something that always occurs on Memorial Day, has been canceled but rescheduled. Apparently it's going to run on August 23rd.
Really?
And I thought, I wonder if that'll affect the way the cars run. You know what I mean? The heat difference between May and August and what they're going to have to do.
And we've talked about this. I mean, it's a big deal. The state of Indiana, believe it or not, about a third of its state revenue from taxes comes from tourism.
Yeah.
So canceling that race is a big deal. The question is, are you willing to go sit shoulder to shoulder with somebody?
Well, that and the heat in August, I don't know, out in the middle of the sun. But I do have 2 trivia questions for you real quick. Who's won the most times at the Indy 500?
Andretti.
Nope, AJ Foyt.
Foyt.
Yes, 4 times. And then here, I love this. Do you know how the Brickyard got its name?
Well, it used to be bricks when it was first done, and they left that one stretch of bricks in that you kiss the brick when you win.
Yes, they did a resurfacing project in 1909, and they brought in, it was 3.2 million street pavers and had a whole project, and you can still see 1 yard of it at the start-finish line.
That's what everybody kisses when they win. When they say kissing the bricks, that's not a dirty thing. That is a race car term. I am really not a Formula or IndyCar series kind of guy, but Barb and I had a few years where we really liked NASCAR and really followed Ryan Newman. Purdue grad, and I was watching a race where he was doing 190 miles an hour in his head, and to figure out when he was going to run out of fuel, and that's before Barb and I had really picked out our driver, and I said, that's the guy.
Yeah.
You can do math at $1.90, and his crew chief said, you've got to fuel, you got to get fuel, and silence. And he said, no, I can make it for 100 yards.
Well, I remember back in the 70s, boy, the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah. This is big. People take the whole month of May off.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to get into the show. Happy Memorial Day weekend. So glad to have you along. Angie and I'll take a break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, Joni Michaels here. Joe's been hosting financial radio programs for over 20 years, and during his 7 years at Purdue, Joe developed the 5 critical elements. You see, there are 5 areas we all go through that can impact and even derail our retirement plans. YourLifeAfterWork.com has been focused on you on your retirement for over 20 years. You may have had a 401k as well as IRAs. Those are all defined contribution plans. Consider this program is about your defined contribution plans becoming defined distributions. You see, we all exit. You'll either take money out of those retirement plans when you decide or when the IRS decides, or your heirs will have to deal with the situation, but we all exit. I encourage you to call 800-928-4001 to meet with one of the talented financial advisors at the Financial Enhancement Group. I've listened to this show for years, and what Joe says just makes sense. Don't you think it's time for you to call 800-928-4001, yourlifeafterwork.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Hey, as new needs are found, our government tries to find ways to respond to help those that are truly in need. That was long before the CARES Act. One of the things that's out there is a program called the ABLE program. It does not impact a lot of people, but it impacts a lot of people a lot. I'm the host of Consider This Program, Joe Clark.
I'm Angie Kinzer.
Happy to have you along. In studio with us, we have Darren Hardesty. Darren is one of our associate advisors, and happy to have you along, Darren.
Thank you, Joe and Angie. It's nice to be here.
We work closely hand in hand, and when stuff comes up, and I think somebody's talking to me and says, hey, we need to know more about ABLE programs. We probably had 3 or 4 families at one time where this made sense. I send my planning team into action to build what's called checklists. And so Darren is our resident expert on the ABLE account. As a father of 3 kids,
Between the ages of what?
My oldest is 3.
Yes.
Right.
That says
yeah. So let's just say that he's glad the state of Indiana is opening back up,
Yes.
right, and is ready to be there. So, Darren, I'm going to turn it over to Angie to let her ask questions, and I will sit here and do my best to be quiet.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, can anyone with a disability?
Now, what's an ABLE account first? They already had to kick in. What is an ABLE account?
An ABLE account ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Living Experience.
Okay.
It's an act that was passed in 2014 for people with disabilities. And to answer the question, not everybody that has a disability can qualify. For you to qualify, the major thing is that you had to have had a disability before you turned the age of 26. And this disability has to be something that a doctor has been able to diagnose you with before that time. So after that, if you are over the age of 26, let's say you were in a car accident or some kind of a situation where you achieved a disability later in life, you do not qualify for this account.
Okay. So who contributes to this account?
Anybody. It's essentially the owner of the account, the person with the disability. It could be a parent. It could be a family friend. It's as long as the amount that is contributed every year does not go over the amount of $15,000. That is the contribution limit for an ABLE account each year.
Well, so there's probably certain qualified expenses that you can use from this account. What are some examples of things that you could use?
There's a long list,
Okay.
but some major things would be education, assistive technology. If there's anything like the act is called Achieving a Better Living Experience, if it's anything that would help enhance the life of somebody with a disability, there's a very good chance that it would qualify as an expense that could be used with this account.
So does any of that, if they're already on another government type program, assistance program, does having an ABLE account or pulling money out of an ABLE account cause them to lose benefits?
It's a very good question. The great thing about an ABLE account is that it will not take away from your SSI, your Medicaid benefits, as long as you don't have more than $100,000 within the account. Anything over that $100,000 amount will start going against your benefits that you qualify for. So you can still maintain those government benefits, which is the goal here, but still have up to $100,000 that you can use towards yearly, monthly expenses that you may have to come across.
So in a special needs trust, I have to be able to take the money out for anything that clearly does not provide normal living, right? Shelter,
Right.
food, those kind of things. In this case, in an ABLE account, you can take a withdrawal for anything, or is it the same rules?
It's essentially the same rules, but this does count towards housing. It does count towards anything that you would need that would be considered a qualified expense that's on the list. But yeah, there are some limitations. It can't be used for things that that you wouldn't especially think would be used for somebody with just disabilities. But yeah, there are some rules in place. But for the most part, it's very similar to a special needs trust.
And so the $15,000 you said, is that what can be entered per account per year or by each individual gifter?
Each individual that owns an account can only have one. So you can only have up to $15,000 aggregate. So it could be multiple people giving to that account.
But the total amount that can go in is 15.
Correct. Now there is a second rule there. If you're over, if you're in an age where you can have a job, and if you have a job and you're not contributing to a qualified retirement account, you can actually add a certain amount of money up above that $15,000 from your earned income. There are some limitations on that, but it's somewhere around $12,000 additional money that you can add, as long as you're not also putting into a 401k or another qualified retirement account.
So where this comes into play, and we can give you a couple of real life examples, right? We've got one of our families has got an autistic child and is sold a business and wants to make sure that there's money that's left for their child, in the event something were to happen to them, right? They have no intentions of not taking care of them, right? So, we're working to open up an ABLE account, and I assume we're still having a problem with our custodian not allowing us to have the ABLE accounts.
That's correct.
Right. So here's part of the reason I challenge Wall Street and get so frustrated. Wall Street does not make money on accounts. They make money on volume, on the number of stocks and shares that are traded every single day and bonds that are bought and sold. And so they do not want small accounts. The reason you listen to this radio show is because I bring you things that are real, things that you need. When we talked about Roth conversions and why they mattered, and Wall Street said poo-poo, right, because you can only do it up to a certain amount, they did not pay attention. Wall Street, for the most part, missed that you could do Roth conversions with an unlimited AGI. The rules changed back in 2007, and it took people a long time to figure it out. We still have a hard time opening up ABLE accounts via the Financial Enhancement Group. We have to help you do it in other places. But another example we had a young man last year that had earned money and was in a car wreck, and that's really where this started. He's got to live at home with his mom and dad, and he's under 26. What's the best place for us to be able to put money for him to be able to use in his future?
Yeah, and these accounts are great. The earnings are tax deferred. We hadn't mentioned that. All withdrawals that are qualified are tax free. So it's a great place for people who know they have some money that they want to make sure that is going towards their kids or towards their grandkids, that they want to make sure that money is going to help them in a way that it's not going to be burdened by taxes or other penalties. Another thing, Joe, that I've learned is that a 529 college savings account, if a family, for instance, starts an account and let's say they have it for 10 years and their child hasn't been diagnosed with a disability or hasn't achieved one, they are actually allowed to do a tax-free rollover from a 529 plan. If they know their kid will not be going to college or using that money for college, they can roll that into their ABLE account tax-free. The goal of the plan is to definitely help provide that assistance and make sure that people aren't punished for having more income or too much money to still receive those state benefits and government benefits.
Which is really a good thing to do. And folks, these are some of those lessons that are out there where things change. And Darren used a very important word, a qualifying expense. I will remind all of you listening on the program today that the tax code is all tax policy is social policy. In other words, what we think is appropriate at the time is what is deductible. It's why you can deduct your mortgage interest if you take an itemized deduction. It's why you can't deduct your car interest. People in Congress thought it would be a cool idea if as many people owned homes as they could, and so they provided an incentive. You didn't used to be able to use IRA money and things like that for college loans. Now there's, especially this year with the CARES Act, there's some exceptions to the rule. And just stay tuned to those. Pay attention. You want to know more about the ABLE Act or more from us, the Financial Enhancement Group, you can call Angie at 800-928-4001. Happy to get you set up for a Next Steps meeting. We are still doing those now live and in person or on Zoom, whichever you prefer. Give Angie a call, 800-928-4001. Thanks, Darren, for being on the show.
Thank you, Joe.
We'll take a break and be right back.
Hi, Joni Michaels here. We know you care about your money, but are you tired of worrying about it? The Financial Enhancement Group takes care of people just like you who don't want to worry about their money. As fiduciaries, the team at the Financial Enhancement Group will care for your nest egg just like they would care for their own if they were in your situation. There are many decisions you'll need to make as you face retirement, and the team at the Financial Enhancement Group is here to help you. Call 800-928-4001 or go to yourlifeafterwork.com to set up a time to meet. The confusion and complexity of retirement is almost as daunting as is the excitement of retirement. Don't let your fear and frustration of taxes and investing derail your retirement. Call the Financial Enhancement Group at 800-928-4001. They'll give you a complimentary second opinion on your strategy for retirement. Begin your adventure in your life after work. Call 800-928-4001 or yourlifeafterwork.com. Now back to Consider This program with Joe Clark.
There are periods of time in life when things don't go as we expect. Divorce is one of those issues that exist. And we're going to talk today on Consider This program about Qualified Domestic Relations Order. Oddly enough, we just had this conversation in our planning team. I'm the host of Consider This program, Joe Clark.
I'm Angie Kinzer.
So something must have come up on my mind that make me think about quadros, and I have actually dealt with a couple of these in the last 2 months. So that's probably what the thing was. But if you heard me say the planning team, let me give you a little bit of the background about how we work at the Financial Enhancement Group. We have squads, and everybody here is our W-2 employees. We're all a team. We all get paid a salary. We all have health insurance access, 401ks. We are not salespeople. We don't sell products, don't use products, not our thing. But we all have different specialties, if you will. So I am, as the managing partner, I kind of oversee those squads. Aaron Rayom is our director of financial planning. And he's got Grant Sullivan and Jamie Burton and Dean Huddleston. And then we've got a couple of external advisors that are out there. We've got Chris Rogers, Darren, who you just heard on the show a minute ago, Darren Hardesty, and Seth Grimmie, that are our associate advisors that are out there. And so we have a planning team that's also met with our CFA, Adam Harder, our chief investment strategist, as well as Taylor Jenkinson, who is our lead paraplanner. And we have these meetings every couple of weeks where people bring in issues that are new, that are unique. And quadros are one of those terms that most of you have never heard of. And we don't have a lot of divorces that we go through. It's just not part of what the DNA of the Financial Enhancement Group is. So when we have them, they're usually people who've come in where the divorce has already occurred. So let's say you have a pension, Angie, and you've got a 401k.
Okay.
All right. Those are both what are called qualified plans. They go under the ERISA Act of 1974.
Mm-hmm.
And you have an IRA.
Yep.
Contrary to popular opinion by many attorneys, IRAs do not transfer via quadros. IRAs are not qualified. IRAs are transferred via court order. Now, this is the only time in your life where you can have two living spouses and have money transferred from your retirement plan to his retirement plan, and it has to be because of court order, and it has to come because of divorce. Other than that, you can leave anything you want to your spouse at death. In fact, if it's a qualified plan without your spouse signing off, it has to go to them, right? IRAs, not so much. Just for the record, again, they are not qualified, hence they don't use quadros. But from a taxation standpoint and the process standpoint, if it's a 401k, it's the same deal. The quadro is nothing more than a document issued by the court that says you get half of my 401k, you get half of my IRAs, except that's not a quadro, that's another court-appointed form. If you're a federal employee, it's even different form. They've got their own little acronym for what it is that they want to use, but they all do the same thing. Where people really get into trouble is with the pensions, and that's when you have a defined benefit plan, and it is your responsibility. So if Angie and I were married and I had a pension plan and we were getting divorced and the judge said that Angie was entitled to half my pension, that court order document has to be filed with the plan administrator of the retirement plan for the company that I work at, right? But it has to be filed, Angie, by your legal team. And it's your responsibility. Do not count on your ex-spouse saying, yeah, sure, I filed it.
Right.
Not a good plan, right? And so that's really what a quadro is, and that's, hopefully it's nothing that ever comes up in your life. I will tell you, one of our people is a certified divorce specialist, where she testifies in court to valuations. She's out in our Montana office, and her favorite saying is, the quality of your life is directly dependent upon the quality of counsel you hire prior to a divorce. And that's, I hate to say it, but that's probably fair and true. They do not go near as smoothly as some people would like to believe that they do. So I'm sure you've got a couple questions.
Well, I'm curious, just because it is a court proceeding, I'm sure there's some costs that are incurred. Does the spouse or former spouse who's receiving that have to share in those expenses?
It would all be deemed in the property settlement. That is something, again, if you have good counsel, where that is dealt with in the amount. So if you've got another form or something else that's being filed in a divorce case, surely I'm certain the attorney's going to charge a little bit more money to get it filed, right? There's, you've got some more issues that are involved there. One of them we saw happen in Lafayette. The judge made the husband pay to have it done because the ex-wife had to do the work. I can't answer how it is typically done, but you have in a divorce a property settlement, and however that property settlement is done is how it's done.
So can a child be awarded a quadro?
That is an interesting question, and I believe I have read that the answer is yes, but do not hold me 100% to that. But I think there are ways to get that done so that if the recipient spouse was supposed to get it passed away, that it would go on to their lineage, which would be their kids. So it could be kids from the very same marriage.
Yes.
But I believe the answer to that question is yes.
Well, in the article that I read, it would say spouse/child.
Yeah.
So I was like, how does that come into play? How does a child?
And I know I've seen them used for, and that's how I know you could use it for a kid. What was I thinking? Because I've seen it when a parent is obligated to pay part of the college expense, and doesn't have a a nickel to his name or her name, and they convince him that a quadro is required, for a smaller percentage, obviously, than an ex-spouse, to be able to help with those college expenses.
You know what? That came up yesterday. The fact that if a child while you're married comes to you and says, I want you to pay for my college, you're not obligated.
Not at all.
But if you're divorced, you're obligated for a third of it.
That's what I've always heard. I've had people tell me that that's not true. So I don't know. But I have we have people in our office that have gone through divorces, and they have certainly been told that is the fact.
Yes.
But I've had attorneys say that that's not quite how it goes. So, I don't play attorney on radio or TV or pretend to be one. I know a lot about estate planning. I don't know a lot about this stuff at all, what we would call family law. I count on other people to teach us that and talk about it. But I do want you to understand quadros, because if you're going through that situation, you need to understand the deal.
Do all plans, through your employer, allow for a quadro, or is that a court's decision? I mean,
the how it's handled probably has to go with how the plan is done and detailed. So there can be different things in there. We've got one right now. We've had people who separated from service or died that were part of an ESOP, for instance, where the ESOP plan automatically paid them money that they could put in their IRA. You're no longer an employee. You're no longer part of the deal. We've got another one that's separated from service, and the employer will not come off the stock and says, if I do, it's fully taxable. So the plan documents get in there, but some of this stuff gets very, very complicated. It's why I have a CPA on our team, right? It's why we have attorneys that we work with every day to be able to figure these out as we need to. This is not me trying to give you legal advice on what to do with a quadro. What I'm trying to tell you is to make sure, if you're going through a divorce, I's need to be dotted, T's need to be crossed, and you can't necessarily just count on an attorney for knowing all the rules if they're a general practitioner. You really want experts that are in your corner, and that's what I try to go find.
So this isn't something that's allowed without a court order. You can't just go.
No, it's purely, it requires that. You have to go through a divorce. You can't do this through separation or anything else. You've got to go through divorce, which obviously by nature requires some sort of court proceeding. And then it's part of the property settlement. It is complex. Make sure you don't get it wrong. Hey, you're listening to Consider This Program. I'm your host, Joe Clark. We would like to invite you to set up a time to give Angie a call at 800-928-4001 to find out about the Next Steps meeting. That's a 90-minute meeting where we will give you things you should consider, things you're going to want to consider in the future, and if we choose to partner together, what FEG will do for you. 800-928-4001.
Hi, Joni Michaels here. Joe's been hosting financial radio programs for over 20 years, and during his 7 years at Purdue, Joe developed the 5 critical elements. You see, there are 5 areas we all go through that can impact and even derail our retirement plans. YourLifeAfterWork.com has been focused on you on your retirement for over 20 years. You may have had a 401k as well as IRAs. Those are all defined contribution plans. Consider This program is about your defined contribution plans becoming defined distributions. You see, we all exit. You'll either take money out of those retirement plans when you decide or when the IRS decides, or your heirs will have to deal with the situation, but we all exit. I encourage you to call 800-928-4001 to meet with one of the talented financial advisors at the Financial Enhancement Group. I've listened to this show for years, and what Joe says just makes sense. Don't you think it's time for you to call 800-928-4001, YourLifeAfterWork.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This Program. I am your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Angie Kinzer.
Angie, what happened to Stretch Armstrong?
Stretch Armstrong? I don't know. I bet you can still get him on
On
Amazon.
eBay, probably.
eBay, yeah.
Probably go out and get him.
I
So,
think they redesigned Stretch.
did they?
I think so.
I remember when he exploded in my bedroom on Glenwood on Muncie, Indiana, when I was in 5th grade, because I think my brother and I might have overstretched.
What color was in there? I always wanted to know that. What did it look like in there? Like a gel?
It was like little gel thingies, if I'm remembering correctly. I mean, it was it was back in the days. For those of you that are born after 1975, I'm sorry, you've missed a lot of great things in life. Anyhow, that was one of them, and I
Okay.
stepped on a potato head piece, and
Mr. Potato Head.
very, very shortly thereafter. So those are the traumatic things of my life. Stretch falling apart, and if you have an IRA or a 401k, you may be having a traumatic experience right now too, because your Stretch has fallen apart. Now Angie, it's not really your Stretch.
No.
Whose Stretch is it?
Your heirs.
Your heirs, and not your spouse. Your spouse gets to do the same thing that you would. So we had a very confusing, and I know we've talked about this on the show, but we get enough questions from this weekly that we've got to kind of bring it up a little bit. So just to put your mind at ease, if somebody has told you something wrong, just understand this was hot and furious, and there's a lot of confusion. Not everybody is a tax junkie like I am. Not everybody has CPAs on their team like we do. Where we're able to just pick up a phone and call and ask a question. So pre-COVID, pre-virus, in December 20th of 2019, the IRS passed what was called the Secure Act, and it went effective January 1 of 2020. Right? Now, what that did, Angie, is it said that if something happened to me, my wife, so you have 3 different kinds of beneficiaries: spouse, non-spouse, and non-designated. Right? Non-designated is when you don't put one on there.
Okay.
Right? Spouse is somebody you're married to.
Okay.
Right? Not at the time. By the way, they're somebody that you're married to at the time of your death. Right? You need to understand that. And then there's non-spouse. So typically your kids.
Okay.
Right? So prior to January 1st of this year, if I died and I was under 70 and a half, and that's because that's when you used to have to take required minimum distributions, and I died, Barb could roll my Roth IRA into her name, into her Roth IRA, and use it whenever she wanted to use it, just like she could use her own Roth IRA. No required minimum distributions, no nothing, right? She can take money out when she wants. It's all
Do
tax-free.
you ever have required minimum distributions on a Roth?
You as the owner do not.
Okay.
You do on a Roth 401k,
Okay.
but not on a Roth IRA, right? But Barb could do whatever she wanted to do with the money. Now, I'm under 70 and a half, and Barb and I both die,
Okay.
and the kids inherit the Roth IRA. All of a sudden, they have access to all of that money at one time, should they decide to use it to go on a trip to Jamaica or buy a Ferrari or do anything stupid. All these things that I worked so hard on to make sure that money didn't get moved around frivolously. So I and many of the families that we take care of have a specialized trust where our IRA and 401k assets go into this trust. And out of that trust is paid the required minimum distribution. So yes, they have to take required minimum distributions out of what's called an inherited IRA.
Mm-hmm.
This is before January 1st of 2020, and they could do it over their life expectancy. If I was over 70 and a half, they had to do it over my life expectancy.
Okay.
All right, which is weird to be dead and have a life expectancy.
Yes.
I get it, but it is the rules, right? It's the way that it functions. So when you move right on along to January 1st, the stretch has been eliminated. There are no more required minimum distributions for anybody who died after January 1st of 2020. What happens, though, is in 10 years, you have to eliminate the account.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the money that's inside of there, you have to pull out at one time. All of the growth, all of it. So if it's in an IRA, it's fully taxable. So if I die on time, as they say, your life expectancy at about 84 and a half for me and you, Angie, we die then. In theory, our kids should be at their highest earning years. And suddenly they've inherited this IRA and this 401k, and you could be talking $1 million, $2 million in many cases. We've got close to $3 million 401k accounts. Actually, we've got a couple that are over now that I think about it. You've got all of this money that's there that has got to be distributed over a 10-year period of time. So let's say but let's say I had a $3 million 401k and I died, right? That means Kaylee and Kendra would have to recognize $300,000 a year, $150,000 a piece each year for the next 10 years, right? That didn't even count the growth, right? So the taxation on that is higher, right? It moves them by far into the 22 and 24% tax brackets, moves them into higher brackets, and there's not anything they can do. There is no defense against that at all. And so this requires very, very, very careful planning. So if you've got a trust that you've put together for the benefit of your IRA and your 401k, those are things we need to revisit because the rules have changed. We spent a few days with Ed Slott and his crew here a couple weeks ago to kind of figure out our response. I've dealt with an attorney or two on their response. We just need to get the trust kind of updated a little bit.
So it was a Secure Act that took that away. Has anything else changed with the new CARE Act?
March 27th, the CARES Act came into play.
Okay.
So the Secure Act made it so required minimum distributions no longer start until you're 72.
Okay.
Not 70 and a half. It's now 72. You can still take the money at 70 and a half. You can still take the money at 60 without a penalty. You're just going to pay taxes on it. Because of COVID in 2020, there is no required minimum distribution requirement. So if you haven't taken the money out yet, you can put it back in. There's some conversation out there that says even if you took it out in January, you have the right to put it back in. I can't sign off on that until I see the final regs and our CPAs say, yeah, that's the accurate translation. And frankly, with the PPP loans and everything else and all the other confusion, I haven't got a chance to look at that part yet. You can still do qualified charitable distributions if you want to, which are come directly out of your IRA that go to your charities. You can still do those. But the bottom line is RMDs are not required regardless of your age, and that includes inherited IRAs for 2020. Going back to 2021, you're back under the Secure Act as we know it now that came into effect January 1st of 2020, just didn't go very far.
What if you were in the midst of already having a stretch IRA? I mean, are they
anything that happened before anybody who passed before 70 and a half before January 1st of 2020 is still in that same boat where they get to continue it the way they were, but they don't have to take any RMDs this year because of the CARES Act.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, this is complicated stuff.
It is.
And it changes very, very quickly.
It is. And it seems like, geesh, if you're the one who's the heir or the beneficiary, you really don't have many choices.
No, you don't, but that's where we do some of the advanced planning with your parents and before you go to inherit it. But this is one of those periods of time where it's really important to ask mom and dad what they have and what their intentions are. Is this something better to skip you and go to your kids? Right? There are things out there that you can do. That's what we live for, is to do the planning. Give us a call at 800-928-4001. We'll do our best to help get you straightened out. Make sure you understand the rules and put you ahead of the game. 800-928-4001.
Hi, Joni Michaels here. We know you care about your money, but are you tired of worrying about it? The Financial Enhancement Group takes care of people just like you who don't want to worry about their money. As fiduciaries, the team at the Financial Enhancement Group will care for your nest egg just like they would care for their own if they were in your situation. There are many decisions you'll need to make as you face retirement, and the team at the Financial Enhancement Group is here to help you. Call 800-928-4001 or go to yourlifeafterwork.com to set up a time to meet. The confusion and complexity of retirement is almost as daunting as is the excitement of retirement. Don't let your fear and frustration of taxes and investing derail your retirement. Call the Financial Enhancement Group at 800-928-4001. They'll give you a complimentary second opinion on your strategy for retirement. Begin your adventure in your life after work. Call 800-928-4001 or yourlifeafterwork.com. Now back to Consider This program with Joe Clark.
Hey, it's easy to sit around and say, don't worry. I will tell you, don't fret. Things that are out of your control, we get to deal with. We can't fix or we can't solve, but we do have to plan for. Social Security is one of those issues. You're listening to Consider This Program. I'm your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Angie Kinzer.
Happy to have you along. So this all stimulated from a question I got that said, hey, Joe, I don't even count Social Security into the equation. It's never going to be there. It's not going to be there. I got off that phone call, and that's not right, by the way. And then the very, very next question was, is the trust fund really going to be broke by 2030 or 2034, or whatever the date was? And the answer is, based on the math, it looks like it. And they go, so we get no Social Security at all. I go, nope, that's not what it says. You just get a reduction. So Angie's gone through and has pulled out some mean and pointed questions to fire at me, I'm sure, because that's what happens when I give her the opportunity to ask the questions.
Well, I mean, we mainly wanted you to explain it because it's all over the news, where they're talking about the estimated shortfall of Social Security and we're not going to get it. And it's kind of scary, especially if you're a ways off from retirement and you think, oh, I was counting on that,
I think it's scarier if you're
If you're
closer
right
to
there.
retirement, right? If you've been counting on that. And I will tell you, if you've been counting on it, you're going to get it. I can't tell you that my 23-year-old daughter is going to get it in the form that her grandparents get it, or the form that maybe even I get it.
Well, I remember sitting in with you 8 years ago as your paraplanner. This was a topic, and people were worried clear back then. And you said, all that needs to happen is this. And
so when Social Security first started out, it kicked in for people who were already dead based on life expectancy.
oh, okay.
Right? It was in theory, and people get mad when I say this, but it was one of the largest age discrimination acts in history. You have to say that's what it was, right? They needed old people off the assembly lines, out of manufacturing, and so they gave them a check to go home, right?
Okay.
To be able to stay. But the average life expectancy was like 64, and you got the check at 65, right? So you already had outlived life expectancy before you were eligible to get it. If you got it, it was totally income tax free, but there was no COLA. COLA is cost of living allowance, and inflation is a big issue. The destruction of purchasing power is a big issue. You need to understand what that means. So we go all the way through the 30s and the 40s, and you get into the 50s, and all of a sudden, half of it's now taxable, right? We get into the 70s, and inflation starts to take off, peaking in 1980, that hyperinflation. And right at the worst possible time, because the checks were kind of melting away due to purchasing power because of inflation, people decided that we should have a COLA, a cost of living allowance, attached to Social Security. If that would have never happened, right? If that never would have happened, we would probably be okay today. But it did happen, right? And so you've got that cost of living allowance that goes on, and you watch the government tell you that the interest rate, or the CPI, Consumer Pricing Index, is very low. We don't believe that that's necessarily an accurate statement as it impacts to your life. It may be for a broad-based government, but not the implications that it is for a retiree. A whole nother story. Bottom line, we are now at a point in time where we started off with, I don't know how many workers it was to every one person that got it, but you're down to like 11 workers paying in for every one person pulling it out. You think the majority of people in Social Security are people who are aged, right, that aged into the deal, and there's really a lot of them that are either beneficiaries, they're kids of people, or they're on disability themselves that have been able to get it.
What impact did the baby boomers have on this with the amount of people?
Well, not much yet, right? So the
Okay.
peak of the baby boom was 1940. The peak of the baby boom was 1957 to 1961.
Okay.
So let's just make math simple and call it 1960. So if you do the math, they're 40 plus 20, that makes them 60.
So they're
Right.
getting ready.
You're not eligible for Social Security until 62. The majority of you listening to the show should not be taking it then, by the way, because of the way the benefits work. And we've got an expert on our team that does, he's a Social Security, that's his job. And we can run the software for you and show you what's best. And I will give you a news flash. It's not best on Social Security. Some of you can write computer programs that can outprogram my algorithm any day. It's not that. It's a combination of all of the other inputs that come in from your income. So don't don't get confused and think it's a singular, what I call a silo decision. This is complex, and you've got to look at it as such. But the first people in 1944 that are quote unquote started the baby boom
Right.
have already been taking it, and that's why you're seeing these numbers of the trust fund running out sooner. People are living longer than what they expected, right? Than what the government expected, and in terms of some of these numbers, and the cost of living allowance, and it's just, I mean, it's huge, right? So when you get to where we are in our society today, when you hear me talk about the labor force and the amount of people being able to work that want jobs but aren't going to be able to get jobs, it's a whole nother story. I mean, one of the things we're talking about on the Market Carver this week, that's that the free video newsletter that we send out every Thursday, and you're welcome to get signed up for it. Just go to our website, yourlifeafterwork.com, sign up for the insights, and I will have that emailed to you every Thursday. But Jerome Powell said that 40%, so just think about this, we're almost at half, 40% of the people in America that had jobs that made $40,000 a year or less lost a job in March.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That is huge.
Yeah.
40% of the people who make $40,000 a year or less lost a job in March. So this is clearly not, spread out. And that's why Social Security, by the way, is structured the way that it is. You're the lower tranche of income earners get the majority of their income paid back in Social Security. The people that are in the middle tranche get a little less,
Right.
and the people that pay in the most get the least back percentage-wise.
Wow.
Welcome to a progressive tax system. But I mean, I get it. But this is clearly it is a conundrum that we're in right now.
Well, I mean, could you fix the situation by just increasing the tax that they take out on Social Security? Or, what would, in your opinion, how could you get more money in there? How do you do it?
It's
If we have more people taking it out right now.
And more to come.
Okay. So what has to happen for there to be money there?
Well, I mean, what has to happen?
Is it reset every so many years anyway?
Not really.
No?
No. What has to happen, or what will happen, and what should happen are probably two different things. But what will happening, instead of the maximum amount of it that's taxed today is 85%, and it's the taxation you pay is based on your other income, your total income for the household. What will probably happen is it will be fully taxable at some point, and based on other assets you have, which it shouldn't be that way, based on other assets that you have, you either won't get as much of a benefit, it'll be reduced based on other income, which is another form of taxation. It's a pickle. And the number of people who are going to take it each year is going to rise for essentially the next 8 years, and then it'll start to go back down, right? But it's still a problem. It's not a good thing. I like good things, Angie. Can we talk about good stuff? Not stuff that's just going
Yes,
bad.
I like to talk about happy things.
There we go. Hey, good. I'm glad. We'll get to that. You're listening to Consider This Program. I'm Joe Clark, your host. It is an issue, guys. We have to plan for and around Social Security. Give Angie a call, 800-928-4001. Get set up. Love to see you. Have a great day.
Hi, Joni Michaels here. Joe's been hosting financial radio programs for over 20 years, and during his 7 years at Purdue, Joe developed the 5 critical elements. You see, there are 5 areas we all go through that can impact and even derail our retirement plans. YourLifeAfterWork.com has been focused on you on your retirement for over 20 years. You may have had a 401k as well as IRAs. Those are all defined contribution plans. Consider This program is about your defined contribution plans becoming defined distributions. You see, we all exit. You'll either take money out of those retirement plans when you decide or when the IRS decides, or your heirs will have to deal with the situation, but we all exit. I encourage you to call 800-928-4001 to meet with one of the talented financial advisors at the Financial Enhancement Group. I've listened to this show for years, and what Joe says just makes sense. Don't you think it's time for you to call 800-928-4001, yourlifeafterwork.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This Program. I'm your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Angie Kinzer.
Angie's been reading.
I've been reading. I like to read.
She's got questions. I'm going to try to give you some answers.
Okay. So I found an article where it's talking about the COVID-19 impact on the healthcare, the industry, or the sector itself. And so what it did is it tried to, break it down into 3 big variations. Like, it matters what the company is. I mean, are they like a diagnostic testing center?
So let's stop here because this is a really important topic to get to the beginning. So when you hear people talk about the S&P 500, it's made up of 500 very large companies throughout the United States, but there's large and there's mega large. Like, remember, the 3 largest companies in the United States by market cap make up, the lion's share. The top 5 companies are about 24.5% of the value of the entire S&P 500 right now. So you got 5 companies making up 24.4, and you got 495 companies making up 75%. Right? So it's way out of whack. When you look at the companies are broken down into sectors, and the healthcare industry is the 3rd largest sector in the S&P 500 right now. So this is a big deal. It's not technology, and actually, I say it's the 3rd. Healthcare may have actually overtaken financials because financials have done so poorly here lately. Technology is clearly the largest sector, just the way it is. So the healthcare sector matters greatly, and the people who wrote this article are not alone in trying to figure out what is going to happen.
No, but they're saying that obviously some things are going to thrive,
right,
and some things are going to be interrupted.
What do you think is going to thrive?
Well, diagnostic testing.
What's that mean?
That means, test facilities. What if we get it to where everyone can be tested for antibodies to see if they've had it? Those places are going to go crazy.
And they are, and the stock price indicates it.
Okay.
Keep going. What else?
Like therapeutics, where companies that diagnose and come up with things to treat symptoms.
Mm-hmm. So what do you and I do on almost a daily basis right now to communicate?
What do you mean, technology?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we Zoom, don't we?
Yeah.
Almost daily, I get to see your mug on the other end of my laptop or my computer screen, right? And so we actually had one of our docs email us today and said, I am pretty sure that I can't remember how you used it, the
teleconferencing
it was another word that he used, but is here to stay, that we have bought into it. And it's in his portfolio. He just didn't know what the companies actually did. I mean, yes, it's here to stay. There is no way that the healthcare sector is not going to get overturned by that.
Telehealth.
Telehealth, yes. But when you disrupt one thing, right, you provide opportunities for another. And Andy Grove was the CEO of Intel. And in one of his books that he wrote, he essentially said, in times of crisis, bad companies die, good companies survive, and great companies thrive. They use the crisis to turn it into an opportunity. And so the companies that were out there that, we use the expression when you see somebody that spends a lot more money than they should, all hat and no cattle. It's a Texas term that my buddy taught me a long time ago, right? You're seeing some of these companies that were strung out, that had bad margins, that were, weren't minding their P's and Q's, that are financially in trouble. And you're seeing other companies that are being able to make major changes because they did run their company well, they did run their balance sheet well, and then you're finding ones that just happen to get lucky. I mean, IBB, when you talk about exchange-traded funds, it's a bucket of stocks, a basket. IBB is one of the ETFs. It's not the one that I would use, but it's one of the ETFs for the biotech sector. So it's a grouping of, 40 or 50 biotech companies. And it hit an all-time high probably last week, right, in terms of where it is. So, you've got a lot of winners, and you're going to have companies that are losers, right? I've said it in multiple talks. I've said it on this radio show. It has been a long time where active management is going to disproportionately outperform passive investments, and there's just no way around it. I mean, good managers. Not all managers will be able to get that done. But if you're going to have a strategy that makes sense into this, you're going to have to be able to pick and choose because they are not all going to be winners.
One of the questions that came up out of this article, because, it was talking about short-term impacts, things that are happening now, such as, people are having to delay elective surgeries and things like that. Medium impacts were things like, the financing, the pressure of the infrastructure, having to get new buildings and things like that. And then long-term had to do with telehealth and that coming into play to be something more permanent. But a question that kept coming up was, people are saying, why is it taking so long to come up with a vaccine when really it usually takes 4 to 5 years to come up with a vaccine? We're saying that in 18 months, we're hoping that would actually be really quick. But
that's way ahead of it. But this, the one thing that is hard to get people to understand, and I can't remember the name of the movie, but when the aliens come and take on the planet, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of those movies out there, but there's one with, well, anyhow, it doesn't matter who it is, but the China's fighting together, Russia's fighting together. We're all in this together, right? It is true. It is most viruses take 4 to 7 years to get through. They get the FDA problem. We're all pot in on this one, right? The whole world is working on it. The best scientists are working together. The CEU companies assure each other that they're sharing all of the the data, and it looks like that's really, really true. Nobody who understands this will argue that China really got us behind the 8 ball by not putting out good data when they could have given us data and good warnings, and it would have impacted our economy in a major way. So that's when you hear the president talking about sanctions because they didn't tell about something that was a major violation to health codes. That's where some of that stuff comes from. But
well, what about Italy? Wouldn't they?
Italy's not happy. But they're again coming out of this better than other places, and they've got more of a socialized medical system. So it's a little bit different, but they've got a more aged population than we do, and they're having very, very serious challenges. So much of that is based on tourism, food and agricultural and eating out. It's just part of the culture. So there's going to be disruptions everywhere. What you have to do is figure out where's the disruption in your life and how can you bring the most out of that disruption? How do you bring good from bad? How do you figure out how to spend less money, be more profitable, be more productive, right? The Keith Cunningham 3 rules of measurement: efficiency, effectiveness, and productivity, right? Measure that. See what you're getting out of it. 800-928-4001. Angie, thanks for the questions. Give her a call. Get signed up for a Next Steps meeting. Go to yourlifeafterwork.com, 800-928-4001.
Hi, Joni Michaels here. We know you care about your money, but are you tired of worrying about it? The Financial Enhancement Group takes care of people just like you who don't want to worry about their money. As fiduciaries, the team at the Financial Enhancement Group will care for your nest egg just like they would care for their own if they were in your situation. There are many decisions you'll need to make as you face retirement, and the team at the Financial Enhancement Group is here to help you. Call 800-928-4001 or go to yourlifeafterwork.com to set up a time to meet. The confusion and complexity of retirement is almost as daunting as is the excitement of retirement. Don't let your fear and frustration of taxes and investing derail your retirement. Call the Financial Enhancement Group at 800-928-4001. They'll give you a complimentary second opinion on your strategy for retirement. Begin your adventure in your life after work. Call 800-928-4001 or yourlifeafterwork.com. Now back to Consider This program with Joe Clark.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This program. I am your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Angie Kinzer.
It is Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
Without a race.
And we've already talked about that.
I know.
That's so
And
weird.
I can't, here's the deal. We always go up to, my family has had a place on Grassy Creek Channel, which is between the Barbies and Little Tippecanoe.
Yeah.
And, I've been going up there since, just learning how to swim, and my mom making my brother wear a life jacket, freaking out that he was going to drown, and drinking pond water and all that other good stuff. And here I am, still alive, right?
Still
amazing,
alive.
Amazing how that works. But and we would go up there so we could listen on the radio, right? because you could actually get the race up there,
Right.
To now where it's kind of like, okay, it's
Well,
not
back
the big.
then, you probably always celebrated on May 30th because it wasn't until 1971 that it became the final Monday in May.
I did not know
So
that.
that's kind of relatively new.
So it used to be on whatever day the 30th fell on?
Yep.
I had no idea.
Yep,
I like the Monday plan better.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yes.
Well played.
It also used to be called Decoration Day. You know, because originally you only recognized military veterans. Nowadays, we kind of recognize other loved ones that we've lost and people like that. But back when it was then and you would decorate the graves and the cemeteries, it was called Decoration Day. And then just gradually over time, it became Memorial Day.
I think I like Memorial Day better. So far,
I do too.
two good things for them so far.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about you? What other things do you guys do?
Well, we'll be up there in kayaks, and
Finally, you get to use
I-
those kayaks.
I believe a year and a few months later, they're finally going to see water. I think. I hope. Yeah, I don't. It's just it's going to be fun seeing my brother and my sister-in-law and my niece and my two nephews, and the boys are happy as I'll get out. They're kind of like me. They love to learn. They hate school.
Yeah.
Sitting down and being contained in a box does not match any of the Clark genes, to a large degree. I don't mind teaching classes, and I love to read, but just don't put me in a box. And,
No.
my niece, however, is a senior, and so she's Mr. Prom. They are going to have their graduation, and we talked about that with your daughter Ava, who's graduating as well, and she's gotten accepted into Purdue's farm program, their ag program.
Yay.
And I'm, doing my best to get my brother to start talking her off the ledge, understanding that it may not turn out the way that they want it to turn out. I mean,
I wonder what will happen in the fall.
by the time she graduates, I'm willing to bet you that education looks entirely different than it does today. So if you want to have a disruption conversation on how education looks, I'm more than happy to talk about that. I participate in that, but I think that disruption is coming in I think that disruption is coming in a very big, bold way. And if she hadn't gotten into Purdue, I was going to suggest that she waited a year to see how this all shook out. But life goes on. I am not dying, and you're not dying, and folks, you who are listening are not dying. But we do have to be smart, and we do have to get back to doing things. But have a happy Memorial Day. Enjoy it. Be with your family where you can. Physical distancing. I don't like social distancing.
Hey, it's going to be in the 80s, too.
800-928-4001. Happy Memorial Day, guys. Be well.
You've been listening to Consider This Program with Joe Clark. As a certified financial planner, former professor at Purdue University, and with 31 years of experience helping families just like you eliminate the fear and confusion of retirement, Joe's team has the answers to your questions. Go to yourlifeafterwork.com or call 800-928-4001 and find a time to meet with the Financial Enhancement Group. There's nothing that will separate you from your retirement as fast as the IRS. There are many questions that can be answered at the Financial Enhancement Group. Questions like when to take Social Security, how will my 401k be taxed? These questions are just the tip of the iceberg, and you need to be asking these questions now before it's too late. The Financial Enhancement Group has offices in Anderson, Fishers, and Lafayette, Indiana, but they also take care of families in 30 other states. You care about your retirement, you don't want to worry about your money? Then the Financial Enhancement Group is right for you. As fiduciaries, they are required by law to treat your money as if it were their own and they were in the same situation. Call 800